Have you ever wondered why your brain always seems to choose comfort? You sit down for just one quick scroll, and somehow 2 minutes quietly become 2 hours. Then suddenly you look at the clock and wonder where all your time went. Because your brain is constantly choosing between what feels easy now and what might benefit you later. And most of the time, your brain naturally prefers the easier option. Comfort can feel like a button your brain wants to press again and again. Sometimes you're not even consciously choosing it. One notification can instantly pull your attention away from what you were doing. And when everything around you offers a quick reward, focusing becomes harder. The reason is simple. Instant rewards feel powerful, but important goals usually offer rewards much later. Your brain sees the immediate reward now and the bigger reward somewhere in the future. So it often chooses the thing that feels good immediately. The easiest path usually feels more attractive than the difficult one. But there is something important about your brain that most people forget. Your brain evolved to protect you, save energy, and avoid unnecessary danger. From a survival perspective, saving energy was useful. Your brain still carries many of those old instructions. The problem is that an ancient brain now lives in a world filled with endless modern distractions. And when comfort becomes available all the time, too much of it can become a trap. The comfort zone feels safe, but the wall around it can be difficult to see. Sometimes all it takes to begin changing is one small step outside. And that first step can feel surprisingly difficult, because your mind often gives you a very convincing excuse. It says, you can always start tomorrow. And suddenly, planning, delaying, guilt, and planning again become a repeating cycle. Then you feel bad because you promised yourself that you would begin. The next day arrives, and the same pattern begins again. Plan, escape, regret, repeat. And comfort often begins with a very small promise. Just 5 minutes. But those small moments can create powerful reward loops. Every notification, like, message, or new video offers another tiny reward. And your attention slowly gets pulled in different directions. Before you realize it, the thing you planned to do has been replaced by the easier option. But maybe the problem is not that you are simply lazy. Maybe the system around you is designed to make distraction incredibly easy. And whatever you repeatedly do, your brain becomes better at doing. Your brain naturally prefers the path that requires less effort. The paths you use repeatedly become stronger. That is how repetition slowly creates automatic behavior. Eventually, comfort can become your default mode. You may even find yourself doing something before you consciously decide to do it. But then something powerful can happen. You can pause. Because feeling an urge does not mean you have to follow it. That small space between the urge and your action is where your choice exists. And the question is no longer, why am I like this? The real question becomes, what will you choose next? But why does comfort feel so powerful in the first place? Because your brain is constantly looking for rewards, and quick rewards can create a powerful feeling almost instantly. Your brain remembers what made you feel good, so it naturally wants you to repeat the behavior. This is how a simple moment of boredom can become a repeating loop. You feel bored, so you reach for something that helps you escape the feeling. The moment you feel relief, your brain learns something important. It learns that this action can make an uncomfortable feeling disappear. So the next time boredom appears, you may reach for the same solution before you even think about it. And that is how a habit begins to form. But is this really addiction? The label matters less than understanding the pattern. Something happens first. A cue appears. Then an urge begins to grow. Then you take an action. And finally, you receive some kind of reward. That reward closes the loop and teaches your brain to repeat it. Maybe you feel stressed, so you escape into something comfortable. But the original problem is still waiting for you. Because relief is not the same thing as solving the problem. The comfort may help you feel better for a moment, but while you are avoiding the task, the hidden cost may continue growing. Small delays can slowly become a mountain of unfinished responsibilities. One tiny decision to do something later may not seem important, but repeated enough times, those small delays become a much bigger problem. Comfort can sometimes hide the consequences of avoiding action. In the short term, comfort feels like a win, but in the long term, the cost may become much bigger. Without realizing it, you may be trading part of your future for a reward right now. And the most dangerous part is that you often cannot see the trade happening. The future version of you eventually has to live with the choices you make today. So the question becomes, who are your current choices helping? Today, comfort may feel good, but tomorrow may have to deal with everything you decided to postpone. And this can create an emotional cycle that repeats again and again. Eventually, you may ask yourself why you keep making the same choice. Then you promise yourself that tomorrow will be different. But if everything around you stays the same behavior becomes easy to repeat. This is why willpower alone is often not enough. Your environment constantly influences the choices you make. And when the easiest option is always available, it often wins. The amount of effort required can completely change your behavior. So, one powerful solution is to make the better choice easier and make the distracting choice more difficult. When you change your environment, you can change your default behavior. Because your brain often follows the easiest path available. So instead of constantly fighting your brain, you can start designing the path it follows. The hardest part is often not the task itself. It is beginning. Your brain naturally resists unfamiliar change because the unknown can feel risky. What is familiar feels safer, even when it is not helping you grow. That is why new things often feel uncomfortable at first. But you do not need to promise yourself hours of effort. Sometimes you only need to begin long enough for the resistance to weaken, because action creates momentum. You do not need to see the entire path before taking the first step. You only need to see the next step. Small actions are still actions. One push-up is better than zero. One page is better than no pages. And 1 minute can be enough to break the pattern of doing nothing. Because your brain learns from what you repeatedly do. And waiting for motivation can keep you waiting forever. Motivation changes. It rises and falls. But action can come before motivation. And surprisingly, motivation often appears after you begin. You do not need to feel ready. Fear often looks much bigger when you are standing far away from it. But as you move closer, it can begin to shrink. A huge task can make your brain want to escape. So break the task into smaller pieces. Then ask yourself, what is the smallest possible step? The goal is to reduce the friction between you and the action. Prepare your environment before the moment arrives. The fewer decisions you need to make, the easier it becomes to act. Make the first move obvious. Because a well-designed environment can often beat willpower, and every small completed action creates a small win. Your brain notices those wins. Over time, you begin to see yourself differently. Your behavior can slowly change your identity. Every time you take action, you give yourself evidence. Evidence that the old story about you may not be true anymore. You can begin writing a new story. And repeated action slowly turns that story into belief. Small actions become the foundation for bigger changes. So do not wait for the perfect day. Perfect conditions rarely arrive. Start imperfectly. On difficult days, do less if you need to. But do not completely disappear from your own goals. Keep the chain alive with even one small action. Because one small action is still better than doing nothing. And if you miss a day, you can always reset. The key is returning quickly. One bad day does not need to become an entire bad month. Real discipline is not never falling off the path. Real discipline is learning how to return. And every time you return, you build a new default.
Now you can see the pattern more clearly. And the first thing you need to understand is this. You are not broken. Your brain has simply learned certain patterns through repetition. And anything that has been trained can also be retrained. You can begin building a new path. The first step is to pause before automatically reacting. Notice the urge without immediately obeying it. You do not need to fight every uncomfortable feeling. Sometimes you can simply allow the urge to rise and then pass. That small pause creates space for a different decision. Even a few seconds can interrupt an automatic reaction. Then ask yourself what you actually want. What do you want more? The reward that feels good now, or the result that matters later? Because those two things are not always the same. The goal is to choose on purpose. Remove easy distractions when you need to focus. Prepare the environment for the behavior you want to repeat. Make the path toward your goal easier, and make the path toward distraction slightly harder. Your environment should support the person you are trying to become. And when your goals feel too large, make them smaller. Tell yourself you only need to begin for 5 minutes. You do not need to feel ready before taking action, because action creates confidence, and confidence can make the next action easier. This is how you build a better loop. The old pattern is not permanent. With repetition, the new pattern can become stronger. The key is to keep repeating the better choice. And eventually, the breakthrough begins with one simple decision. Comfort itself is not the enemy. The real goal is to make sure that you are in control of it. Rest when you intentionally choose to rest. But do not confuse intentional rest with escaping every difficult feeling. There is a difference between resting after meaningful effort and using comfort to avoid your life.
You do not need to live in extremes. Every day, you will face small choices. You will not make the perfect choice every time, but you can always return. Because your future is built from the small moments you repeat. And this moment matters. Your next choice matters more than your last mistake. You can change your default. You can retrain your brain through repeated action. And you can begin today. The choice is often between the comfort that feels good now and the growth that changes your life later. You do not need to transform everything today. You only need to make one small choice that moves you forward, because you always have a choice. Comfort feels good, but growth changes your life. And the life you want is built one choice, one action, and one uncomfortable step at a time.